Hey guys, good morning. This is Dan with Leisure Sport. How you all doing? So in this video today, I'm going to show you how to make sure that your recovery phrase is correctly backed up on your recovery sheet. Let's do it. So as you know, your recovery phrase is super important because it actually represents all your private keys. So if you lose your recovery phrase, or if someone gets a hold of your recovery phrase, then they'll be basically able to access your account. This means that it's super important to make sure that your recovery phrase is correctly backed up on your recovery sheet. And fortunately, there is an app that's available via Ledger Live that will let you do just that. This app is called the Recovery Check app. So let's have a look at it. Okay, I'm in Ledger Live now. What I want to do is going into the manager and download the Recovery Check app on my device. Here's how to do it. First of all, make sure your Ledger device is unlocked. Okay, so my device is now unlocked. I can go into my Ledger. Now I'll need to allow the Ledger manager on the device by using both buttons. And here I want to type recovery. Okay, so you can see here's the Recovery Check app installed. Okay. So the app has been installed on my device. You can see it here. I can now close Ledger Live, or at least you want to make sure you are not in the manager. So you can go back to the portfolio page or the account page, but just make sure you're not in my Ledger anymore. So now here's the interesting part. I don't need Ledger Live anymore. Everything happens on the device itself. I'm going to open the app first. Now it says check your recovery phrase. So I want to use both buttons to pass that screen here. It says select the number of words written on your recovery sheet. So in my case, I have a 24-word recovery phrase that I got from a Ledger device. I'm going to select 24 words. And here it's going to ask me to enter the first word of my recovery phrase. So see, it's giving me the prompt to select Kiwi. I'm going to select this. And basically, when I finish typing my recovery phrase into my device, then the device will tell me if the check is successful or not. So I'm going to finish typing the words in my device and I'll see you in a second. All right, guys, so this is the last word and I'm going to punch it in. And let's see if the check is successful. Yep, it's telling me that the phrase is correct. So I am sure that my 24-word recovery phrase that I have here is correctly backed up on my recovery sheet, and the same recovery phrase is in my device. So I am safe. My phrase passed the check, but you might be wondering, what if my phrase doesn't pass the check? Then what should I do exactly? If your phrase does not pass the test, don't panic, the Ledger device is not going to reset. There will be no consequences to failing the test. However, there are steps that you must take to protect your funds. There's 3 things that you can do. The first thing you should do is go onto the BIP39 list on GitHub. So again, that's the BIP39 list on GitHub. You'll find the list of all the different words that can ever compose a recovery phrase. And what you can do is go through each of the words on your recovery sheet and make sure that each of the word is on the list and it's also correctly spelled. Something else to keep in mind is, let's say for example, you find a word on your recovery phrase that is not on the list. Then you need to find the correct word that's on the list. Sometimes what happens is when you first back up your recovery phrase, then you will read a word on the device, but your brain will understand a different word. So I'll give you an example. One of our customers recently mistook the word barber for harbor. So instead of writing harbor on his recovery sheet, they wrote barber, which is not on the list. But by going through the BIP39 list, they were able to find a word that sounds similar to barber. For example, harbor, which has the same number of syllables and the same sounding ending, right? So they were lucky and they were able to find the correct word and correct their phrase. So that was a happy case. So the BIP39 list is very useful for this kind of things. Now, let's say you've gone through the entire BIP 39 list, you've made sure that all the words on your recovery phrase are on the list, but still your recovery phrase doesn't pass the check. In this case, there is something wrong with your recovery phrase. Maybe the words are not in a correct order. Maybe there are so many mistakes in the recovery phrase that, in fact, you'll never be able to put the words back together. However, it's lucky because you still have access to the device. If that's your case, your phrase is wrong, but you still have access to your PIN and to your device, you absolutely need to send your funds out of your device. You can send your funds to an exchange account, for example. Then reset the device, create a new 24-word recovery phrase. That phrase, make sure to back it up very, very carefully on your recovery sheet. You can even go through the BIP 39 list at the same time just to make sure that the spelling is correct. So create that new recovery phrase, then go through Ledger Live, make sure your accounts are completely empty at this point. All your funds have been sent to a third-party account, like an exchange, for example. Then go in Ledger Live and remove all your accounts. Once you're done with this, you can create new accounts, which will be secured by your new recovery phrase, and then you can send your funds from the exchange back to your new accounts. In this case, your funds will be secure again, because again, your funds are secured by your 24-word recovery phrase, not by the device itself. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something. The Recovery Check app is really, really important because I think it's really good practice to do a recovery check every 6 months. I mean, it depends on how paranoid and secure you want to be, but in my case, I would suggest to definitely do a check every 6 months at least, just to make sure that your recovery phrase is correctly backed up and you still understand your own handwriting as well, because that's another issue that might happen is as the time progresses, you know, your brain changes, but your handwriting stays the same. So you might not be able to read your handwriting 20 years from now. So that's why you want to do those recovery checks once in a while, just to make sure that you still understand your own handwriting and you still make sure that the recovery phrase is still backed up in the device.
The Recovery Check app is also super useful in the case where you have one Ledger device, but you have multiple recovery phrases and you're not too sure which recovery phrase is currently held in the device. In this case, you can just use the Recovery Check app to verify which phrase is in the device. The one that passes the check is the one that's currently held in the device.
All right, so that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other questions or any doubts, or if you want to learn more about how to keep your recovery phrase safe, or you just want to chat with us, you can reach out to us via the Help Center. There is a help button in the Help Center that you can click and you'll be able to talk to a live agent or send us an email. You can also find us on Twitter at ledger_support. That's ledger_support. Be super careful on Twitter because there is a lot of fake accounts. So the account that you want to look for is the official Ledger support account, the one with a check mark. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. You can also drop questions in the comments below. Bye.